All right, thank you for staying. You're watching Daybreak on Trust Television. Now, time for us to take a look at the dailies on Daybreak, and we have quite a number of papers to look at. So we'll begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. The lead story there says, aviation workers shut airports over new law. It has the riders that says, insist banning union activities illegal. Issue 14-day strike notice, passengers stranded. Minister denies smuggling in new clauses. You also have, just above the lead story, Daily Trust invites nominations for African of the Year 2022 award on page 6. You would find all the details there. The Daily Trust is in search of the man or the woman that will qualify for that. Now, you also have parents cautious as schools resume in states on page 33. 2 swept away, 9 rescued as flooding hits Niger and Ekiti as well as Lagos State. And then you would find also beside the pictorial, FG ASU, court adjourns hearing to September 16. You also will find concerns over non-assent to Nigerian startup bill. I attempted killing my dad 3 times to inherit his money, says son. You'd also find at a footnote, Obi to Tinubu, presidency not turn by turn. The writer says, we will activate our structures in 774 local government areas for Obi. That's according to the NLC president, Nigerian Labour Congress, that is. We have golden opportunity to address challenges, LP chair says. You have also the pictorial there showing you Controller General of Nigeria Immigration Service, Isa Jere Idris, with the Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Rabo, after their strategic meeting bordering on security matters at the Defense Headquarters in Abuja. Let's not forget those still in captivity. 11 schoolgirls of FGC Birnin Yauri, 453 days still in captivity. 1 student of Bethel Baptist High School, Kujama, 426 days still in captivity. We hope that they will be released as soon as possible.
All right, let's take a look at the Leadership newspaper. The Leadership newspaper has a lead story that says, in final push for reconciliation, PDP leaders move to pacify Wike others. We also have the story here that says, MRA asks NBC to disclose license fees payment, stations debt. Right beneath that, Soludo Obi, Uba Ekwinife, others condemn attack on Ifeanyi Uba. 2023, vote competence, not same fate ticket, Gumi tells Nigerians. Also, still on the airport issue, we have the story here. Passengers stranded at airports as unions protest anti-labor bill. And right above the masthead, we have INEC delays 1.1 million voters over double registration ineligibility. Ekwerimado's daughter says father diagnosed with acute kidney damage begs for donor. These are the major stories on the Leadership newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the next paper now. We are looking at the Daily Times. And on the Daily Times, we have the lead story. It says, I won't offer excuses as president, says Obi. You also would find other stories there at the very top above the masthead. Strike, court adjourns suit between FG ASU to September 16th. You would also find other stories there, how NNPCL loses $700 million monthly to oil theft. And then you also have INEC invites observers from international community. Same faith ticket. I'm also worried as a Christian, says Akeredolu, talking about Ondo State Governor. That's that for the Daily Times.
Let's look at the Punch newspaper. The Punch newspaper has a lead story that says, boundary disputes worsen insecurity, 676 killed in states. The first writer says 444 houses razed in communal clashes in Ebonyi, Kogi, Cross River, others. Federal government addressing 86 cases. Security experts, lawyers blame governors. Also, we have, there's a pictorial here that shows flooding in Lagos. It's captioned, Lagos flooding, rescuers recover 2 corpses, save 9. We also have a story here that says, federal government begins tax recovery from 2,000 mining firms. Akeredolu apologizes to clerics over Muslim ticket. We also have another story here. Passport issuance rises by 38%. More Nigerians relocate. 5 killed in Ifan Yoruba's convoy attack. And just beneath the pictorial, we have Labour Act. Aviation workers issue 14-day ultimatum. Gridlock traps Lagos-Ibadan motorists, passengers for 16 hours. Then we also have another story here. Strikes, students to barricade expressway, carpet in Gigi, Adamu. These are the major stories on the Punch.
All right. So let's take a look at this day newspaper this morning. The lead story there says, The Economist, Nigeria missing out on rare global oil boom opportunity. You'd also find above the masthead, FG eyes $4 billion annually from cashew exports. Other stories there, you would find Nigeria had special place in Queen Elizabeth's heart, says Lang. And also Buhari, despite our challenges, other nations still believe in Nigeria's potential. You would have the writer that says President Tinubu chair Fayemi on elections as Africa's region's leader. I think that's about the major stories on this day newspaper this morning.
All right, let's take a look at the Blueprint newspaper. The Blueprint newspaper has a late story that says, Keyamoto Obi critics. Tinubu strong, fit for presidential campaigns. The first writer says, accuses Labour Party candidate of plotting fake assassination attempt. We also have another story here that said, NAF airstrikes destroy terrorist hospital in Sambisa, kills cause in Borno, Katsina. And then there's also this story here, just beneath the Victoria. INEC invites EU, UN, Commonwealth, AU, ECOWAS observers. That's for the 2023 elections. These are the major stories on the Blueprint for today.
All right, so let's get perspectives on these stories this morning. We have Mukhtar Suleiman in the studio, public affairs analyst, to give us perspectives on some of the stories. Thank you for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Good morning. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Well, quite interesting this morning. A lot of conversations, though we didn't see the usual similarities that we will see across all the papers. Everyone is, having his own,
doing his own thing.
When I was in school, they say no news day is a bad day.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Right?
It looks like it's a good thing. Slow and steady is actually good sometimes.
Yeah, but there's one that is of concern to many parents. Earlier on, we saw some stories, some reports about school resumption, and we've had to receive reports from various states, and it doesn't look like parents are excited this time around. There's a story here on the front page of Daily Trust that says parents cautious as schools resume in states. So there's a reason for that. What's your perspectives on, what's changing really?
You absolutely can't blame them really, because we saw how the school shut down in the first place in Abuja, particularly after the FGC Kwali incident that happened, and then instead of a swift, decisive, and clear attack, What did we do? We went into hiding. Shut down all the schools. Everybody should go home. And they did that in a few days. But the federal government has not come out to say, oh, this is the guarantee we are giving you. These are the security infrastructures we've put in place to ensure that your children are going to be safe when they return back to school. It's just been radio silence ever since. And now schools are resuming, and we're just expected to just forget that this was what happened when we shut down in the first place. So concerns are valid. I don't want to have to pay ransom for my children just simply because I want to send them to school. I should be able to say I'm sending my children to school, and they should feel safe where they go, wherever it is they're going to school. I can tell you categorically, when I went to school, secondary school, I did my secondary school in Mina. My parents live in Warri, Delta State. And every now and then I come to Abuja for my holidays. The only twice my parents came to school or followed me to school was the day they went to drop me off and the day I did my personal parade when they came to pick me back. That was the only 2 times so I was always going alone, and it felt safe. There were even times I would leave Abuja by 6 p.m. in the evening to go back to Mina. And it didn't feel like I wasn't looking forward to it.
It seems like a lot of people have same story. Myself have the same story. I mean, the only time, it was just 2 times you talked about. The first day you were dropped, and then the last day that you'll be leaving, and all that. But that cannot be said as of now. That cannot be said of, parents right now, because of so much that has changed, especially if you look at the issue of security and the rest, which you have highlighted. But again, on in another perspective, again, the issue of school fees by private schools. That's also something that, some consider alarming. There seems to be some kind of increase. Parents are considering changing schools for their children, and the rest of them.
I think one of the things, the demographic I feel the most pity for is the ASU, the lecturers who have been at home for over 6 months now. No salary for that time, and they also have to send their children to school as well. It is sad and it is pathetic, because now how are they going to navigate through the entire system? And then the average Nigerian himself or herself, whose business has been thwarted by some of the issues that are actually happening in the country. If it is not the naira taking a dive to the dollar in the international market, it's going to be that your boss cut your salary by so and so because of the economic turmoil, or it is going to be, it's just too many dynamics coming together looking for a way to kill you as a person. It's almost as if every day Nigeria finds new and innovate, like 76 new and innovative ways to kill you. It doesn't repeat anyone every day. It's just weird.
The thing is, apart from the hike in school fees, especially with the private schools, there's hike in the cost of books, uniforms, and all of that. And the thing is, there are some parents who feel, okay, we've had cases, at least I read about some cases where the parents feel, okay, the cost of the uniform by the school is high. Why don't I get the materials, give it to my tailor, and then he makes it cheaper? But a particular woman did that, and the school rejected that uniform. They said that it had to be from the school. What do you say to that?
Right from since time, we knew that school uniforms, books are used as a technique to generate income for the schools as well, extra income for the schools as well. Why? I don't know, because I'm paying you school fees already. I have a few of my siblings that live off me for school fees and the rest of it, and one of them is resuming school as well this term. And I would recall that I called the school. They're not here, they're in Delta State, and I called the school. I'm hearing that you're insistent that I have to pay, I have to buy textbooks from you. They said, yes, that's the school policy. I said, well, you need to send me the written policy. I think that was what killed that matter. I said, send it to me, the written policy, when it was written, everything, because you can't just be telling me that's the school policy when it's a verbal term. That doesn't make sense. You're talking to an educated person for a change, I think. And
in any case, those books they're talking about, it's possible that her older sister used the same books and they're available in the house for her to use, right?
It's just weird that the fact that you have to
some will
insist.
reject the old ones.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just weird that you have to insist that they have to buy new books and they have to buy it from you. If it's not from you, they cannot get it from anywhere else. When I'm paying you for your service, I'm already paying you for the service that you're providing, which it comes in forms of the tuition that I'm going to pay at the beginning of the term, which if I don't pay, you don't let my child into the school. But then the extra miscellaneous cost where I'm supposed to be able to find a way to bypass and then see how they can actually you are telling me that I'm in your assistant, and then you give me a verbal, that is the school policy. Well, send me the written policy at the end of the day. I think I'm just saying that to everybody out there.
So are parents helpless now? You know, that's the thing that we're looking at. Are parents helpless? Because sometimes you hear things like, oh, well, if you are not comfortable with the way we run things, maybe you should consider taking your child elsewhere. And it doesn't look like elsewhere is any better as well.
I would sue you, because the thing is, if when I'm bringing my child into the school, you do not tell me from the beginning, when you were giving me all the documents that I needed to sign and everything, it is not there in the document that I signed that I must buy textbooks from you every time. I must buy uniforms from you every time. You do not make that very clear to me. And then you come and give me a verbal thing and tell me that's how you run your school. I'll sue you for every penny you don't have. That's just the honest truth. Because it's not fair. It is an exploitative method. We cannot say that the government is a problem and then we'll also contribute in our own unique, dynamic way to... Then when it favors us, it's okay, but when it doesn't, then it's corruption or something.
Do we have any policy, though, that regulates some of these things? Maybe a government policy that says, okay, private schools, this is how you do it, this is how you do it. Do we have anything like that?
I've never believed Nigeria is not short of laws. I don't know if we do have. Honestly, I don't know. But even if it's somewhere just receiving dust. Because one thing I have learned in this country is that we are not short of laws. We have laws. Just implementation is usually where the problem is. So maybe that should be a new research I should actually do to see. Thank you so much for telling me that.
And even if there are no laws, if parents come together and resist some of these demands, don't you think that
what's the essence of the PTA? What's the essence of the PTA in the secondary schools? It is to see how parents and the teachers can have can meet each other halfway at the end of the day. Because some of these things are really absurd, honestly. I categorically, it doesn't make sense, and it needs to actually change.
All right, there's this story here on the Daily Trust newspaper. Obi to Tinubu, presidency not turn by turn. When I was going through the story, there was this part of it that I found it interesting. Obi was telling the NLC that he was ready to sign a performance agreement based on the retreat that they are having, so that when or if he wins, they can hold him to that agreement. And I want to know, is that, aside the retreat, is that something you think Nigerians can start looking into? When leaders want to come in, you tell them, okay, what is it that you want to offer? Sign this agreement so that they can use it to hold you to account later.
I think in a few ways we've been doing that. There's a scorecard thing that most of the CSOs actually put together based on the campaign promises that most candidates make before they get into office or after they get into office. Most of it are usually evaluated based on what agenda did you put in place, what agenda did you set that, oh, these are what's going to drive your tenure. One. Secondly, it's usually what are your first 100-day promises? Did you achieve them? That's also another thing. Then budget, allocation and cash backing for most of it. These things are done indirectly, but I personally don't think it is realistic to say that you want to sign an agreement, because then every labor union might want to do the same thing. And how much of it can you... I think we should move past the era of you want to solve everything in 4 years. For me, I think it's something that you can discuss, agree on, okay, these are the things that might be a good focus. And it should reflect what the average Nigerian every day wants. It shouldn't just reflect what the members of the labor union want. It should be a national thing, more or less like what Goodluck was trying to do with Confab that really wasn't that much of a success. So I think if that can be done, it will be easier. Peter Obi is, from the look of things, a well-intentioned person, but I hope and I pray that he has the systems and structures in place to achieve most of what he's actually promising.
All right, well, quite interesting stories here. The lead story also talks about the aviation workers, shutting down airports, over new law. So they are fighting what they call, the banning of unionism, in the aviation sector, and they feel that that's not fair. This law is basically saying that aviation workers are essential workers. So this is likely going to usher us into another crisis yet again, while we were still trying to deal with the issue of aviation fuel in the aviation sector and all that.
I think last week when we discussed, I told you that every day we peel off the aviation sector and we see a new layer of law. it's almost as if that sector is looking for, again, looking for new ways to see how they can frustrate the system. I've not really, I was trying to go through the story earlier this morning on my way down, and I saw that they said they refer to them in the new law as essential workers, which basically relegates them to a very non-important position in their workspace, which I don't think is fair. They have a right to actually protest what they feel like is going to be against them. And if aviation workers go out of their way to shut down the airport, which rarely happens.
You know, it basically means that they will no longer be able to have, there will be no more union.
You see,
you know, unionism is going to be cancelled
which is
by virtue of that law.
Yeah, which is unconstitutional, if you ask me. They cannot do a law should not. That's the new aviation. This thing is a bylaw of some sort. It should not trump the constitution. The constitution gives you a freedom of association. Even gives the Labour Act also does that. So you cannot use one law to actually trump the other. Especially, nothing should surpass the constitution.
You know,
nothing in this.
The aviation workers are lamenting that a public hearing was held on this bill, and that the issue of this part was, nobody talked about it during the public hearing. This is according to the aviation workers. But now that it has been passed, it has not yet been signed. Now that it has been passed, they have seen this part in it. So, and the minister is saying that he's not the one that injected this section into the bill. So at what point did this even come up? And should we even be having this at all?
You see, it's that thing about we not reading things traditionally again. It comes back to that thing about Nigerians. We just see a big document, we just want to skim through. We don't take our time, or we don't even pay for the services of people who should actually go through it carefully and ensure that our interest is properly protected. I'm sure that this was an innocent oversight from their part prior and during the public hearing, and now that somebody just noted it. We don't fuck off for you. I think there's something we did not look, and now it has become an issue. But if it's still possible, I think if it's still a possibility, they should find a way to review it and all sit down and agree on how to move forward, because this issue is going to thwart flight. People are not comfortable traveling by road. The government has not done its part enough to ensure that the roads are safe for us to travel through. So if that be the case, then we need to ensure that the alternative that everybody has been trying to use is also not an issue, because then we're empowering
And
the
in any
systems
case, these workers gave the warning last week Thursday that they were going to go on this strike.
I saw that.
Why is it that nothing was done and they allowed it to happen? Because so many people were stranded. In fact, we saw some respondents that spoke to our correspondent said, one particular person said that he has this doctor's appointment once in every 3 months, and it was supposed to be yesterday. He missed his flight, so he could not get that appointment. Now, that's what's allowed to happen. They have given another 2 weeks ultimatum.
Let's see how it goes, because I think I remember that on Thursday I was at the airport. I was traveling to Kano to return on Saturday, and there were a lot of delays, and somebody was mentioning it that this might be an offshoot of this labor issue that they're having with the aviation workers, and we're at the airport for a while. But fortunately, my flight was the last flight for the day, so by the time I got into the airport, they were already settling them and everything, and everybody were able to leave on time even. But now that they've given another 14 days ultimatum, let's see. I hope that they can negotiate and meet themselves halfway, because we can't keep having this with ASU and then come back to the aviation sector and then go to another sector. It's just too much. That needs to be addressed.
All right. Now, I want us to look at yet another story on the front page of Daily Trust. And this one is just a story that I'm not able to wrap my head around it. A confession, actually, by someone. He says, I attempted killing my dad 3 times to inherit his money. So that's a confession coming after arrest by the police of this boy, and I'm wondering how. And you know, part of the story is that he saw that some of his parents have inherited their, some of his friends have inherited their parents' wealth, and that how they are lavishing it and all that. And so he became also interested. And now he wants to take the life of his father to inherit his own wealth. Where did the idea even come from?
Exactly.
The idea of get rich quick scheme has become a very big thing in this era and time, especially. And it is painful because I think the internet has been a catalyst for it. People often believe what they see or how they see what they see, even if the realities of people are completely different. The realities that you have are different from the realities that I have.
But this particular boy didn't get his from the internet. He saw his friend spending the money he got from inheritance. According to him, his friend's father died, so the boy was given loads of money, according to him. And that the friend now bought a motorcycle and started to enjoy himself. Immediately that happened, he bought rat poison and gave his father. It was just, I mean, by sheer luck that the father survived that particular one.
Oh, that's sickening. Like, well, the point there is we see and we want to always copy it, forgetting that there are layers and layers of what makes the other person who they are. You know that saying, as they say, the grass is always green on the other side, is actually an irony. It's not always greener. You just think it is. Everybody always thinks somebody else has it better. But that's not the situation. Maybe that's his friend who died. He's going through his own trauma. He didn't wish for his own father to die. He's just dealing the way
and we're talking about a 25-year-old boy here.
Exactly.
Just barely 25.
Not a teenager anyways. A 25-year-old should be, I mean, he's an adult.
He should be working.
Right? He should be working. He should be doing something for himself.
But that's the country, that's the world we live in, not just even the country. That's the world we live in. And to see that my motorcycle was the thing that enticed him.
Exactly.
Interesting. We really all have different tastes.
But don't you think the society is playing a huge role in this thing? The society also appears to be worshipping wealth and all of that. So, you know, people around you get to respect you only when they see that you have money.
I think saying that society, when we say things like, oh, the society is contributing, is to assume that the concept of society exists in an abstraction. It doesn't. We all make up a society. There are individuals, there are cultures that makes up what we call a society to get today. So when we say it's an abstraction like that, it devoids the holding an individual responsible for that action. He had his own role to play for it, and it is utterly wrong, because he's 25. He should know his left from his right. He knows that a right person will kill his father. So he should also know that not eating right person should not kill his father. So I think he should face the full wrath of the Lord. He called it for himself. Kawede, honestly.
All right. Well, I think we've had quite a lot to chew this morning, and it's time for us to end the session. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.